Bullies target single mom's kids, then discover she's a Marine veteran. A story by Heartfelt Tales. The grocery bag split open just as Sarah Martinez stepped onto her front porch, sending canned goods rolling across the weathered wooden planks like scattered ammunition. As she knelt to gather the mess, her 8-year-old daughter Emma burst through the front door, tears streaming down her face and her school backpack torn at the seam. Behind Emma came 10-year-old Jake, his lip bleeding and his clothes dirty from what was clearly more than just playground roughhousing. "Mom, they said we don't belong here," Emma sobbed, throwing herself into Sarah's arms. "They said we're trash and that we should go back where we came from." Sarah's jaw tightened as she pulled both children close, her trained eyes automatically scanning Jake's injuries while her heart broke at Emma's words. The neighborhood bullies had escalated again. If you're enjoying this powerful story of resilience and courage, please show your support for Heartfelt Tales by hitting that like button, sharing this video with someone who needs to hear this message, and don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring stories that touch the heart. Now, let's continue with Sarah's incredible journey. Sarah had moved to Maplewood 6 months ago, seeking a fresh start after her husband David's death in Afghanistan. The small suburban neighborhood seemed perfect for raising her children as a single mother: quiet streets, good schools, and affordable rent on a modest 2-bedroom house. What she hadn't expected was the invisible battle she'd have to fight right in her own backyard. The trouble started small. Neighbors whispered behind her back about the welfare mom who'd moved into the Johnsons' old rental house. They noticed her beat-up Honda Civic, her thrift store clothes, and the way she worked 2 jobs just to make ends meet, cleaning offices at night and stocking shelves at the local grocery store during the day. What they didn't know was that every dollar she earned went toward providing stability for her children, that every sacrifice was made with military precision and unwavering determination. The neighborhood's unofficial leader was Patricia Whitman, a sharp-tongued woman in her 50s who lived in the largest house on the street with her husband Robert, a local businessman. Patricia had made it her mission to maintain the neighborhood standards, which apparently meant making life miserable for anyone who didn't fit her narrow definition of acceptable residence. The harassment began with small acts of cruelty. Sarah's morning newspaper would disappear. Her garbage cans would be knocked over during the night. When she planted a small vegetable garden in her backyard to help stretch their food budget, someone poured salt on the soil, killing her carefully tended tomato plants. But Sarah endured it all with the quiet strength she'd learned during her 8 years of military service, never retaliating, always taking the high road for her children's sake. The situation escalated when school started. Patricia's son Brandon, a stocky 12-year-old who'd inherited his mother's mean spirit, began targeting Jake and Emma with ruthless efficiency. He convinced other kids to exclude them from playground games, spread rumors about their family being poor and dirty, and made sure they sat alone at lunch every day. "Nobody wants to be friends with charity cases," Brandon would sneer, loud enough for other students to hear. "My mom says your mom is probably on drugs or something. That's why your dad left you." Jake, trying to be the man of the house at 10 years old, would clench his fists and fight back tears. Emma, sensitive and shy, would come home each day more withdrawn, her bright spirit dimming like a candle in the wind. The breaking point came on a rainy Thursday afternoon. Sarah was walking home from her morning shift at the grocery store when she heard shouting from the direction of the school bus stop. She quickened her pace, her mother's instinct screaming danger. What she found made her blood run cold. Brandon and 3 other neighborhood boys had cornered Jake and Emma under the old oak tree at the corner. They dumped the contents of the children's backpacks into a muddy puddle and were forcing them to retrieve their soggy homework and books while the other kids laughed. "Maybe if your mom wasn't such a loser, you could afford waterproof bags, Brandon taunted, shoving Jake backward into the mud. That's when Sarah saw something that nearly broke her heart in two. Emma, sweet little Emma who used to laugh at everything, was just standing there taking the abuse with dead eyes, as if she'd given up fighting back entirely. Enough. Sarah's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. The single word carried such authority that every child immediately stopped what they were doing and turned to look at her. Brandon, emboldened by his friend's presence, smirked. "Oh look, here comes Super Mom to save the day. What are you gonna do, call the police? Tell my mom on me?" Sarah walked slowly toward the group, her movements controlled and purposeful. Years of military training had taught her that sometimes the greatest strength was knowing when to show restraint, and when to stop showing it. "I'm going to give you exactly 5 seconds to apologize to my children, help them clean up this mess, and then walk away," Sarah said quietly. "After that, we handle this differently." The other boys shifted nervously, but Brandon laughed. "You can't tell us what to do. My mom says you're nobody important. Just some broke single mom who—" "I'm a United States Marine," Sarah interrupted, her voice still calm but carrying an edge that made the air itself seem to vibrate. "I served 3 tours in combat zones, and I learned that there are 2 types of people in this world, those who protect others, and those who prey on the innocent. Which one are you, son?" For the first time, Brandon's confident facade cracked. He'd never seen an adult look at him the way Sarah was looking at him now, not with anger, but with the kind of measured assessment a predator makes before deciding whether something is worth their time. "You think picking on children makes you strong?" Sarah continued, taking another step forward. "You think humiliating my daughter and hurting my son proves something about your character? Let me tell you what I learned in the Marines, kid. Real strength is protecting those who can't protect themselves. Real courage is standing up for what's right even when it's hard. And real character is measured by how you treat people who have less power than you do." The other boys had already started backing away, suddenly finding reasons to be somewhere else. Brandon stood his ground, but Sarah could see the uncertainty in his eyes. "I've faced enemy combatants who were scarier than you'll ever be," Sarah said, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "Men with guns and explosives who wanted to kill me and my fellow Marines. Do you really think a spoiled 12-year-old is going to intimidate me?" Brandon's face flushed red, but he was running out of bravado. "My mom's gonna hear about this. She's gonna call the police and have you arrested for threatening a kid." Sarah smiled, and it wasn't a pleasant smile. "You go ahead and have your mother call anyone she wants. But first, you're going to help my children gather their things, you're going to apologize for what you did, and you're going to think very carefully about whether you want to find out what happens when someone threatens my family." The standoff lasted another 10 seconds before Brandon finally looked away. He mumbled something that might have been an apology and helped Jake and Emma collect their muddy school supplies before hurrying away. That evening, as expected, Patricia Whitman came storming up to Sarah's front door with her husband in tow. Sarah met them on the porch, having changed into her old Marine dress blues, every medal and ribbon perfectly positioned, her bearing ramrod straight and unmistakably military. "How dare you threaten my child?" Patricia shrieked before she got a good look at Sarah. Then her voice faltered. "Ma'am," Sarah said with military courtesy, "your son has been terrorizing my children for weeks. Today I found him forcing them to crawl in the mud while he and his friends humiliated them. I gave him an opportunity to do the right thing, and I gave him some perspective on what real strength looks like." Robert Whitman, who had remained silent, was staring at Sarah's uniform with growing recognition. "You're military," he said quietly. United States Marine Corps, sir. Staff Sergeant Martinez, retired. 3 combat deployments, Purple Heart recipient. Sarah's voice carried no boastfulness, just simple fact. Patricia's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. I had no idea. No, ma'am, you didn't. You saw a single mother struggling to make ends meet and decided that made me and my children fair game for your entertainment. You saw someone different from you and assumed that made us less than you. But let me be very clear, I didn't survive everything I survived overseas just to come home and watch my children be tormented by bullies. The silence stretched uncomfortably long. Finally, Robert spoke up. Patricia, maybe we should go home and have a talk with Brandon about appropriate behavior. After they left, Sarah went inside to find Jake and Emma waiting in the living room, their eyes wide with amazement. Mom, Jake whispered, you were so cool out there. You didn't even have to yell or anything. Emma climbed into Sarah's lap, her small arms wrapping around her mother's neck. I'm sorry I didn't tell you how bad it was getting, Mommy. I thought if I just ignored them, they'd leave us alone. Sarah held her daughter close, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo. Baby girl, you never have to face bullies alone. That's what I'm here for. And Jake, being brave doesn't mean you never get scared. It means you do what's right even when you're scared. The next day brought a transformation that surprised even Sarah. Brandon approached Jake at the bus stop and quietly handed him a new backpack to replace the torn one. At school, other children who had been afraid to associate with the Martinez kids suddenly found their courage. Emma came home with 2 new friends' phone numbers, and Jake was invited to join a pickup basketball game. But the real change came from Patricia Whitman. 3 days after their confrontation, she appeared at Sarah's door again, this time alone and carrying a casserole dish. I wanted to apologize, Patricia said, her voice smaller than Sarah had ever heard it. And to ask if you might consider joining our neighborhood watch program. We could use someone with your expertise. Sarah studied the older woman's face, looking for signs of insincerity but finding only genuine regret. Mrs. Whitman, I appreciate the apology. And I'd be happy to help with Neighborhood Watch, but only if we're clear that this neighborhood includes everyone who lives here, regardless of their income level or family situation. Patricia nodded vigorously. Of course. Absolutely. I realize I've been. She paused, searching for words. I've been acting like someone I don't want to be. Someone I'm not proud of. Over the following weeks, Sarah found herself becoming an unexpected leader in the community. Her military experience proved invaluable in organizing neighborhood safety initiatives, and her natural ability to read people helped mediate conflicts between neighbors. She started a weekly self-defense class for local kids, teaching them not just how to protect themselves physically, but how to stand up to bullies with confidence and dignity. Emma blossomed like a flower finally given proper sunlight, her laughter returning as she made new friends and rediscovered her love of learning. Jake, no longer carrying the weight of trying to protect his family alone, threw himself into school activities and even convinced Sarah to let him join the junior football league. 6 months later, Sarah was elected president of the Homeowners Association by unanimous vote. At her first official meeting, she looked out at the faces of neighbors who had once whispered behind her back and now looked to her for leadership. I learned something important in the military, she told the assembled group. A chain is only as strong as its weakest link, and a community is only as strong as how it treats its most vulnerable members. We have an opportunity here to build something special, not just a neighborhood where property values stay high, but a place where families can thrive, where children can grow up feeling safe and supported, and where neighbors actually look out for each other. The applause was genuine and sustained. Patricia Whitman, now one of Sarah's most vocal supporters, wiped away tears as she clapped. After the meeting, as Sarah walked home under the soft glow of the streetlights, she felt something she hadn't experienced since David's death, a sense of belonging, of home. The house she'd rented out of desperation had become the foundation for a new life, and the neighborhood that had once seemed hostile now felt like a community. She found Jake and Emma waiting up for her, homework finished and ready for bed. As she tucked them in, Emma looked up at her with serious eyes. "Mommy, are you happy here now?" Sarah smoothed her daughter's hair and smiled. "You know what, baby girl? I think I am. Sometimes the best things come from the hardest places. Sometimes you have to fight for what's right to find where you belong. Will you teach me to be strong like you?" Emma asked. "You already are strong, sweetheart. You just needed to remember it." As Sarah turned off the lights and headed to her own room, she passed the small table where David's military portrait sat beside her own service medals. She touched his face gently, whispering, "We're okay, babe. The kids are okay. We found our place." Outside, the neighborhood was quiet and peaceful, but Sarah knew it was a peace built on mutual respect and understanding rather than fear or conformity. She had learned that sometimes the biggest battles are fought not with weapons, but with courage, dignity, and the unwavering determination to protect those we love. The single mother who had arrived 6 months ago beaten down by grief and struggling to survive had discovered that her greatest strength had never left her, it had just been waiting for the right moment to emerge. And in teaching her children to stand up for themselves, she had rediscovered who she was, not just a Marine, not just a mother, but a leader who could turn a group of strangers into a family. This incredible story reminds us that strength comes in many forms, and sometimes our greatest challenges reveal our deepest courage. If Sarah's journey inspired you, please take a moment to like this video and share it with someone who might need to hear this message of hope and resilience. Don't forget to subscribe to Heartfelt Tales for more stories that celebrate the power of the human spirit, and leave a comment below telling us about a time when you found strength you didn't know you had. Your story might just inspire someone else who's facing their own battles. Thank you for being part of our community, and remember, we're all stronger than we think we are.